Hey guys, and welcome back. So the last hurdle, I should say, of assembling this engine back together is this water tube that goes from the head into the water pump. And the main reason is that this flange where the O-ring sits is pretty much non-existent. I am surprised it even held coolant in that condition. So I have tried JB welding, soldering, epoxying this flange into a somewhat usable state, and I just cannot do it. So the fix, instead of buying one of these things, because from what I found they want $400 for one of these things, and it's out of stainless steel, and in my head there is no way that is worth $400 when you have two turned pieces welded to a piece of bent piping. I just don't see it. So we are going to grind this flange down to the lip, right where my nail is, right there. We're just going to wipe out where that O-ring will sit. I have already taken the liberty of cleaning the bore as best I can. Probably going to put some CLR in with it just to let it eat on that a little bit. Anyway, we're going to be making a bushing basically with our O-ring flange on one end, a 975 through hole. I'm trying to limit how small I'm making that hole because you still need a good amount of coolant to go through it, and I'm only sacrificing like 60 thousandths. So this is going to be a fairly thin wall here, and then yeah, turn down, part it off. It'll be about what, 1.25 inches long. Look something like that when we're all done. Probably scratch up this end piece with some heavy grit sandpaper, and then I'm gonna try to do a press fit, but I'm kind of wanting a slide fit so there's room for that epoxy to seal up, and that will give us a brand new sealing surface for our O-ring, which will look like something like this. So we're recreating what it should look like right here, up here, and this tube, the only way it is fastened to the engine is a clamp that goes over this side, and the side that goes into the water pump, it just sits there. And then in the manual it recommends you coat the O-rings in brake fluid before assembling. So I am going to grind this down, make our flange, probably at work, because the lathe at work has a bit more oomph than mine, and they have drills and everything else, but I'll bring you guys back when I get a flange here. Alright, so here is our solution, turned out of brass, and we're going to use this water pump and thermostat housing gasket maker and coat that with there. I also machined some grooves in it there, and I can hit it with some 80 grit sandpaper just to rough it up so that gasket maker has something to grip to. But it should be a pretty nice fit. And then our O-ring will have a brand new seal, and it ain't gonna rust because it's out of brass. So there she is, gents. Wasn't too bad, took about an hour to turn it, so hopefully that will fix our problem. I think it will. Alright, now to lather it up and slap it in there. Alright, there's the finished product. Granted, it's not perfect because that flange is just like an extruded tube, so the sealant will fill in the rest of the gaps there. But O-ring will fit nice. So we got a brand new water tube. Look at that! At the low cost of $7, the cost of the sealant. I've had that chunk of brass in my toolbox for years, so it came in handy. If I were to do it again, I'd give me a little bit more of a lip for my O-ring, but it'll seal just fine the way it is right now. You see it's spaced a little bit more on this side than on that side, but there's still plenty of room for that O-ring to seat properly, so it shouldn't leak. And she's ready for paint now. Alright, while that paint is drying, I set my timing. I ran my plug wires, although my plugs are out, so I could turn it over easy by hand. The oil pan is officially on. Oil pan is officially on. A new oil filter is in there. I filled it up with oil. I'm using the Lucas break-in oil with the high zinc formula. And this is the oil filter number. I bought 3 of them. They ran me about $50. So this is the oil filter I'm using. Comes with the new element and then 2 different types of O-rings. And I like the Napa ones because they have this metal cage over them. And that CarQuest one I had before was just all pleated paper. It didn't really have the outside cage of it. And made in USA too. Can't beat that. Alright. Oh, and here is the belt number I'm also using. That ran me $12. And made in USA again. Man, what's going on here? Got a bracket for the alternator mounted, so I can just move that back and forth. I had to paint the water pump pulley, but in the meantime I figured I'd be running some wires, and this green to yellow to green to that goes to my oil pressure sensor. So we're going to be keeping the braided here, but we're going to be getting rid of these 2 splices, and then we're going to cut this back, trim the wire, flex it, solder it, heat shrink, and then call her good there. And then we can run that properly. This one goes to my positive side of my coil. I'll probably just put a new connector on there. And then this one goes to my temperature sensor. So I'll just clean that up, slip it on there, and then run these, tuck them in so it looks nice. I discovered I mounted my coil backwards. It should be that way. Firing order is 1342. So 1342. Everything lined up when I made it to top dead center on my number 1 cylinder, so that made me happy. The oil pan was a pain. It was a pain, and if I rotate it over, you'll hear it. Oh my goodness, there it is. You hear that scratching? That's that clutch cover. So I might have to address that. That thing's kind of a pain in the butt. But we're making progress. that oil pan fiasco took me majority of the day. The back 3 bolts back there, I had trouble lining them up because I put in a gasket maker and it covered up the holes, so I did my best to remove them, but I ended up cross-threading one of them, so I had to go underneath and helicoil one of those holes. That was fun. But that is all, bottom end is all done, besides that clutch rubbing, or the flywheel gear, ring gear, there you go. So, hopefully by the end of the weekend, I will have the water pulley pump on, I'll have the belt on, I might have the radiator in, but I'm waiting on maybe dumping some CLR into it and letting that eat for a little bit. We're getting darn close. Oh, and I'll put the carburetor on, as well as the oil bath air cleaner. We'll route that, and then we just got to deal with the whole gas tank scenario. So I will continue to update you as I go. Alright, radiator wise, I filled her up with a CLR and water mix and let it sit about 30 minutes and then flushed it out really good with the hose. It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And then I polished the upper section of it where you see it. And this is the original radiator that came with it, according to the numbers there in the build ticket. When I first had this in, I was wrestling the hose on, and it looked like it cracked right along this edge here. So I hauled it back out and then soldered it. You know, it's not the prettiest job, but it functions. Soldered it up, and then I filled it up with water and let it sit overnight, and the water didn't leak, so we're gonna shove it in and call it good. Went through the carburetor. That's a Holley 1904 single barrel. Had a little bit of issues on that, but that's all together and properly tuned and everything, hopefully. Hooked up into the fuel pump, and I have the vacuum advance disconnected from the distributor right there. Oh, I did notice that I had the where's some light here? There we go. I have, where's my finger? This bracket should be over here because it is for the throttle. So this bolt here should be sitting on that bracket and holds this whole assembly together. So I don't have the gas hooked up. Ooh, but she feels nice. And then yesterday I had the E-clip on that plastic doodad. Oh my gosh, what's it called? I had that break on me, so that's probably for the better. Oh, and that valve there for the heater core I got off of Amazon, and it fits very nicely. So I will leave a link in the description below on where to find one of those, because the old one I had was just too rotted and I didn't want to deal with it. I just would rather throw in a new one and call it good. So I went to Napa yesterday, got all new hoses. They sure don't give these stupid things away. That one's like 30 bucks. That one was like 26 bucks. And the lower one was like 18-ish, I suppose. And here's a little time capsule here. This is the lower radiator hose. And you can tell, maybe, we'll use the lamp here. If you can make out the IH symbol, like right where my fingertip is, This is an original radiator hose. I don't know if it's like original or if they traded it out later down the road, but it's got a pretty nasty gash in it. So that surprised me, seeing an original radiator hose there. So I guess I can chalk up radiator repair. I did put the valve cover on. The spark plug holder there is copper, but I took a can of that rubberized coating and re-coated where the plug wires ride. Also buttoned up the exhaust flange, and I believe I had the coil firing wrong. I think it's 1342, and I had it clockwise where it goes counterclockwise, so that's my bad. Put on the spark plug holder bracket there. I got a paint just underneath it, but main goal, the carburetor took me all day yesterday, sadly, and I was wrestling with the radiator, but I was getting kind of fizzed out, so hopefully today we will get this beast in and filled up with some coolant. And it's so tempting to just grab that lawnmower can and hook it up to this thing and let it run. We'll see what happens today, I suppose. Oh, and I did check out this cute little thing. Got a little tachometer. And this is from Scouter 1, and it comes with this 3D printed holder, and it'll fit on the back side of your steering column. So that's pretty nice. And I just got to figure out how I'm going to wire it and make it look nice. Thinking maybe some like straight conduit tube, run it up the side, maybe find some type of maybe aluminum or something, make it look, you know, somewhat factory. So that's nice. Just got to deal with that. I'm going to be running an inline fuse with that because this does not have a fuse box. No fuse box, and we don't want it burning. Although, not sure what would really burn on it, but we don't want it burning, so we're going to do that. But in the meantime, I will try to wrestle that radiator down and then put in that lower hose there. I'll leave the Napa numbers for the hoses I'm using. This one isn't the correct hose. It's the close enough it'll work hose. I might get the proper hose later. This was the original hose that was there. 7176, and this one's honestly not in terrible shape. I might just reuse it, but it's better to just have all new hoses, so I might just order this one at a later date and swap it out. It does have the spring down inside of it to keep it from contracting when you're running. So let me get to work here. Enough blabbing. Alright, radiator is in. Had a heck of a time getting that lower hose in, but we did it. And don't do what I did and get excited and fill the radiator and then forget that you have that lower bypass hose from the head into the water pump still off. And then, you know, piss coolant all underneath it. So don't do that. Got the heater box in. I haven't bolted it from underneath. Put the heater core in, ran some of the tubes, or the hoses. This one's the newest one I bought, so it's less than 2 years old, and it's still nice. This one is an older one that I need to replace before I really go any further. That looks nice. In between the heater core and those flanges there, those two flanges that run up and down, I put a piece of roofing sealant, this like tar stuff that you can get. Where is it? Some of this, just as something to cushion it as it's sitting in there. And I've had that for like 10 years or so. It's just comes in this roll. It's like a thick padding there. I used it as a cheap sound insulator on my first truck when I put in speakers. But I just wanted something in between the heater core and that steel in case it rubbed. And when I took that heater core out, there was some type of rubber tar substance that was coated in those, so I just wanted to kind of replicate what was there. But I got that in. That is the whole reason I started this stupid project. But now it's somewhat back in. Started running some of the tubes here. This one's almost too short, and that one is pretty much just permanently in once I bolt that in. Had to figure out where I run my hoses here, so got that figured out. Started painting the tachometer bracket there, scuffed it up, and shot a couple or 2 coats of paint on it. It'll be the same as the steering column there, so it kind of blends in. I didn't want the 3D printed look on it. The bad news for the day, I'll get some light up here for you, is this bottom piece of sheet metal is, I think, too rotted to support the weight of a full fuel tank. And as I was wire wheeling it, that big gash opened up there, and the more I looked at it, it's just too paper thin to really do anything. So I got a new bottom section on order, and I'll rip that out and weld in that one once it gets here. Another problem I'm facing is how the heck am I getting this poly tank inside of this thing, because once I stick it in here, it gets in the way of this drum, and I can't maneuver it enough to slip it in there. But we'll figure out something. So that's kind of the bad news, but I'd rather have this be sturdy and not have my tank fall out while I'm driving, and I don't want to go down that road. So this is going to get replaced. You can see there on the corner, it's pretty rotted. Pretty rotted. So, not real progress on the fuel tank scenario, I suppose. Just main focus is getting the motor back together again. I did pick up a thing of fuel line, so we'll figure something out there. I got a couple fuel filters in the mail, and yeah, I think that's all we got for this weekend. Soon you will run. Oh, I think I forgot to mention, when I had the radiator out, this bracket was undone from the radiator, so I had to resolder it back together again, which is why it's a little bit cheery over here. But I did manage to sucker back together again, so that's a win, I think. Anyway, we'll keep you guys up to date here, and thanks for watching, subscribing, commenting, thoughts, whatever. And we'll see you guys in the next video.